We can't share a room in your house until we are married. Alrighty then. This is a story from my mom that I heard quite often growing up. Some background. Her parents were very religious and, particularly her mom, very conservative. Her mom was a missionary at one point, dad was a minister, so they weren't particularly thrilled with the boyfriend she met in college. My dad, who was a long-haired, pot-smoking hippie, was 9 years older than her and had run afoul of the law on numerous occasions. He was literally camping out in the Duke University forest while she was attending the university as a political science student. Plus he was white, she's black, and it was the late 70s/early 80s when interracial relationships were much less common and more frowned upon. She finally quit her studies to follow him hitchhiking all over the country after he skipped bail and fled the state to avoid getting charged with his third drug-related misdemeanor, which would have been upgraded to a felony since North Carolina was a 3-strikes state. So my grandparents, especially my grandma, already disliked him. When my mom brought him home to her parents after the whole dropping out of a prestigious university and becoming a hippie thing, and they slept in the same room, her parents were unhappy to say the least. My granddad was doing his absolute best to be accepting, but my grandmother's interpretation of Christian teachings leaned much more heavily on traditional social mores than on the tolerance my granddad tried to practice. My grandma confronted my mom and proclaimed that she and my dad were not going to live in sin under her roof, and they couldn't sleep in the same room in my grandparents' house until they were married. My mom seemed to accept this. She and my dad went back to Texas, where they'd been living for a bit. They filed for common law marriage, pretty easy to do in Texas, or at least it was then. When they came back to visit again, and my grandma repeated her ultimatum, my mom smugly informed her that they *were* married. Definitely not what my grandmother had in mind. TL. Doctor, my grandma told my mom she and her boyfriend couldn't stay in the same room in her house until they were married, so they eloped, which was most certainly not the desired outcome. Go to our manager when you screw up. Sure thing. So, I used to work with this guy, let's call him Billy. At first, Billy was an okay guy when he stated, and was getting trained up. Billy decided that this department wasn't for him, and transfers out to a field position. Billy decides 2 months later that he wants to come back, and there is an opening for him. Billy is no longer an okay guy at this point. Billy became very bad at the job he was doing. He only had about a month's training in the position before he left, and when he came back he refused any further attempts to train him. He figured that, since he was with us 3 months, that his training period was over, even though 2 of the 3 months were in another department. He was big into own-upsmanship and lied through his teeth to seem cooler than other people at anything. Example, one of my coworkers was big into CS/GO. So Billy said he was a professional at CS/GO and played in tournaments. So he was asked his CS/GO rank. He gave some bullcrap answer like diamond. This attitude bled into his job, where he pretended he knew what he was doing, when he clearly didn't. Onto the good old MC. Billy screwed up. A customer had an issue that Billy handled, while he was the only one here. He did not do it right, and inconvenienced the customer for later, when the customer called me. Not a huge deal, but caused by a lack of following procedure from good old Billy boy. I fixed it, had proof that it was him, and shoot him an email, as I worked nights to his days, and never saw him, reminding him that he needs to make sure to do it properly from now on. His response, via email, I did it right. Who do you think you are, telling me what to do? If you think I did something wrong then you need to go to our manager. Don't come to me about it, you're not my boss. A. I do have every right to point out your mistakes, Mr. Trainee. B. I do have every right to tell you what to do. While you are in training, I am your boss for all intents and purposes. You have been in the department for a total of a month and a half to my 2 years. I know what I'm doing far more than you. If I tell you did something wrong, trust me, you did it wrong. C. Tell our boss. Oh, you got it. So begins my quest. I don't even have to try hard to find things that Billy is freaking up. Constantly failing to fill out information in a critical log. Check. Failing to follow procedure and screwing over customers. Check. Failing to do something that we are required by our contract with our client to do. Check. So every day my manager gets an email about him and all the screw ups I find. After about a week my manager takes me aside before I leave and asks me why I'm emailing her and not helping to train him by pointing out his mistakes. So I show her Billy's email showing that he is refusing help and inform her that everyone else is getting the same attitude from him. He got written up for unprofessional behavior and one more for failing to follow our procedures. He was told he needed to improve quickly. He did not improve quickly, and before he could be fired, he quit claiming he had a better job, and we never heard from him again. We don't even have a hard job. Sure, it's a little procedure heavy, but it's a desk job where you answer a few phone calls and radio calls. He had no college education and had kids to support. This job was about the best he could hope to find in this city. Stick to the expenses policy. I had to make a business trip to another city, Brighton, from my home Bristol. There aren't really any decent train connections without going via Route London, and you're talking about 4 or 5 hours train travel each way. So instead I decide to drive under 3 hours, and to avoid being away from the family I got up early and left home at 5 AM. So I arrive Brighton and need to wait on some colleagues. I know my employer will meet my costs for breakfast up to about £8. So I went to Subway and had a breakfast sub for under £3. I waited for the others and 30 minutes later they arrived. So I offered to buy a coffee and one for myself so we can talk and plan before meeting our supplier at their offices. Fast forward and the day goes fine. I travel home same day and come to submit my expenses for £3 breakfast and £2 for 2 coffees, still under the £8 allowance. The finance team rejected my expenses for the coffee as, "You've already claimed for breakfast." I pointed out it was the same cafe within 30 minutes and that if I'd bought the coffee at the same time as the sandwich they'd approve it. What's more, as I traveled on the day of the meeting from home, I was not entitled to claim for lunch. I was told it was tough and I should stick to the expenses policy in future. Okay. I've recently returned from visiting the same supplier as before. However, this time I left work at lunchtime the day before to avoid traveling on my own time and ensure I arrived at the hotel during my normal working day. I then had an evening meal with drinks, a nice room in a city center hotel, a full buffet breakfast, and my parking and travel costs all covered. Since I'd traveled the day before, I'm entitled to claim lunch as I could not have taken a packed lunch from home, and lastly, since I arrived home after 8 PM, I claimed not only for another evening meal on the way home, but a half day of time off in lieu for the time spent traveling home. At least I stuck to the expenses policy this time. TLDR, kept my expenses under £5 and got them refused due to not following policy. Followed the policy and company paid about £400 of expenses. Edit. My first ever award. Thank you stranger, put it on expenses. Me vs US Telecom giant. Long time lurker, first time poster. A few months ago now, my wife and I were looking to get new phones. I looked around online and saw that the company I was with had a buy one get one for $800 off deal. I also looked around and found several box stores were offering $200 per new phone or upgrade acquired through them. I knew that sometimes these deals had a catch, so I made some phone calls. First to the major telecom, where I inquired into the promotion and was informed that the $800 off was for a new activation only. I then asked if there was any way around this and was told, due to too many representatives abusing our system, everything is automated now. It was at this point an idea hit me. I asked if I port my number away, activate a new line, and port it back, would I still get the deal? It was at this point when the representative got really quiet and refused to answer my question. So I broke it down into smaller steps. I asked, my phone is paid for, so if I leave there is no penalty, correct? To which the representative told me I was correct. I then asked my next question. The only requirements for the promotion is that I get a particular brand of phone and I active a new line, correct? To which the representative also confirmed. The last question, is there anything that would prevent me from porting a number of my choosing that I owned onto a newly activated line? To which the representative responded, no, but you would lose your current number. I then informed her that I can save my number and that isn't something they need to be concerned with, then went on my way. My next step, I called around to the major box stores to find the details of the promotions and to ensure it worked with the Telecom's promotion. All the stores I was interested in doing business with worked with the Telecom's promotion. Some put $200 per new phone straight towards your account. Others were in-store credit. Now for the malicious compliance. When I got off work I went to a big box store known for their blue uniforms as I have already had good experience with them. My wife and I sat down with the representative, upgraded her phone, and activated what is now my second phone. I then waited until the following weekend when time was on my side and kicked my plan into action. Some people may not know this, but the most used search engine has an additional voice feature where you can easily obtain a new phone number for free or port a number you want to save for a one-time nominal fee. It was $10 or $20. I took my old number and ported it over to my email account through the search engine. I then decided I liked having my old number there and used an additional feature to forward all phone calls directed at my old number directly to my new number. I also put an app from said search engine on my new phone so I could send calls and texts from my old number. I was going to port my number to my new phone, but I've chosen to leave it where I have two numbers for now. So next time I do an upgrade I can discard my burner number and get the better deal. Savings was $800 from Telecom, an additional $200 per line for a total of $1,200. Cost for activation and port $60-70. When everything was said and done I got top tier phones for my wife and I. Also due to the savings our monthly bill went down.